After years of constant control, my mother finally cut me off from the family business for wanting to pursue my own dreams. As she told me to leave, I thought it was over, until she locked me out of the house and left me stranded in the cold. Desperate, I screamed, "You'll regret this." But she only smiled and said, "You'll never be welcome here again." What she didn't know was I was already planning my next move. I'm not proud of what I've done, but I'm not sorry either. I just need to tell this to someone. Maybe someone out there will understand. My name's Eric. I'm 34. I spent most of my adult life working in a business I didn't want, for a woman who never once treated me like an adult. My mother, Deborah, ran Delaney Floral Supply, based out of Albany, New York. Sounds harmless, right? Flowers, smiling customers, quiet family legacy. But behind all that was control. Iron-tight control. My mom was the kind of woman who treated independence like a threat. From the time I was old enough to walk, she made sure I understood the chain of command, and she was always at the top. When my dad died suddenly from a heart attack, I was 13. Everything changed that day. He had always been the buffer. Quiet, kind, a little distant, but at least he listened. After he was gone, my mom didn't fall apart. She just got harder, colder. She told me at the funeral, "Now you're the man of the house. That means you work for this family." I thought she meant emotionally. I didn't realize she meant it like a job contract. She sent me to college, sure, but only if I majored in business. I wanted to study architecture. She laughed, told me that wasn't a real job, and said if I didn't want to waste her money, I'd go for something useful. She had strings on everything. My tuition, my housing, even my credit card. And she reminded me every time I so much as looked at a course outside the business department. When I came home after graduation, I moved back in. It wasn't a question. She said I needed to learn how real business is done. That turned into 6 years of unpaid overtime, constant errands, and watching her take credit for everything I did. I worked 60, sometimes 70 hours a week. No benefits, no health insurance. She said I was being groomed for leadership. What that really meant was I ran spreadsheets, drove 2 hours to pick up last-minute supplies, and kept my mouth shut in meetings. The worst part? She controlled everything in the house, too. I was 32 and still had a curfew. She checked my bank account. She told me which friends were worth keeping. When I dated someone, she'd find a reason to criticize them until I felt guilty for even bringing them around. It worked every time. Then one day last fall, I met someone from my old college, Danielle. She'd started an interior design firm in Troy and was doing well. We grabbed lunch to catch up, and I felt something I hadn't in years. Possibility. Real possibility. We talked about teaming up, floral design, staging, office interiors. She said my ideas were solid, that she'd invest if I wanted to branch out. When I told my mom I wanted to leave the company, she stared at me like I said I was joining a cult. "You want to throw away your future to fluff pillows for bored housewives?" she said. "This is your family's legacy. You don't just walk away from that." I told her I wasn't asking. I said I'd saved up and I was ready. She didn't say anything, just nodded and walked away. The next morning, she called a family meeting. My uncles were there, my cousins, even our family lawyer, Russell, who'd known me since I was a kid. She read from a printed statement, said I was stepping down voluntarily from the company, and that for the sake of continuity and reputation, my name was being removed from all paperwork, emails, and public records. She framed it like I was choosing to go, but I wasn't. She made the choice for me. They all sat there and nodded, like this was normal. I went back to the office to grab my things. My access card didn't work. My emails were deleted. My company laptop was gone, all within hours. When I got home that night, my house key didn't fit the door. I knocked. Nothing. I called. No answer. I pounded harder, and after 10 minutes she opened it, not even all the way. Just enough to look me in the eye. "I told you," she said. "You made your choice." I begged her not to do this. It was below freezing that night. My coat wasn't enough. She just stared, cold as ever. "You don't live here anymore," she said. "You're not my problem." I lost it. I screamed, "You'll regret this." She smiled, a little smirk I'll never forget, and said, "You'll never be welcome here again." Then she shut the door. I slept in my car that night. I didn't have a backup plan. I had some cash, but not much. My savings were mostly in joint accounts she had access to, which, I'd later learn, she drained. But what she didn't know was that I had something better. I had 6 years of emails, tax records, purchase orders, payroll games. Stuff she thought I was too dumb or too loyal to notice. I had backups on a cloud she didn't know about. And I knew where the bodies were buried figuratively, of course. I'd been quiet too long. Now I was awake. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at a cheap motel near Central Avenue. The kind of place where people don't ask questions if you pay in cash. I was cold, pissed off, and tired. But more than anything, I was done playing her game. First thing I did was check the bank. The joint savings account I'd had since high school gone. Closed out. She drained every cent, nearly $14,000, mostly money I'd been saving since college. I called the bank and asked how that was even legal. Turns out, since her name was still on the account and I hadn't updated anything since I turned 18, she had every right. Then I checked my phone plan, disconnected. She'd cut that too. My name had never even been on the contract. She controlled everything and made sure I never noticed until she pulled the plug. I called Danielle from a borrowed phone. Told her what happened. She didn't hesitate, offered her spare bedroom and a couch to crash on. I didn't want to impose, but I had no other option. I packed my stuff, what little I had, and moved into her 2-bedroom apartment in Troy. She didn't ask for anything, just listened. And that helped more than I can say. That's when I started putting everything together. I still had access to the backup cloud drive I used at the office. It was technically personal, and I'd kept copies of almost every major report I touched. I knew what to look for. I knew where the cracks were in her books. See, my mother had a habit. She moved money between vendors and ghost suppliers, ones with vague names and no websites. A few times, I asked about them in meetings. She always brushed it off, said they were just temporary service providers. But when I pulled up those old invoices and cross-referenced them with state records, none of them were licensed. Not one. Most were registered under shell companies linked to a P.O. box in Cajos. All of it looked like a classic tax dodge. Money being funneled out, laundered, then re-invoiced under different names. I found discrepancies in payroll too. Some employees were listed twice under slightly different names, likely to inflate numbers or maybe funnel extra money into fake checks. Whatever it was serious. Easily enough to draw the attention of the IRS if someone knew where to point. And I did. I wasn't stupid. I knew this wasn't the kind of thing I could go to the police about, not yet. So I contacted a local CPA I trusted from college, someone I hadn't spoken to in years but who had since gone independent. I told him I needed to verify some theoretical documents. He took one look and said, "This isn't sloppy. This is criminal." That's when it hit me. My mom wasn't just controlling. She was corrupt. She wasn't just cutting me off. She was making sure I couldn't come back. And the more I dug, the clearer it became. She'd been prepping this for years. Slowly removing my name from documents, making it look like I had less and less to do with anything. In the public records, I barely existed in the company anymore. I wasn't just erased. I was ghosted out of my own life. Danielle and I kept digging at night. I'd come home from side gigs, lifting boxes at a warehouse, delivering for DoorDash, then spend hours going through old files, invoices, email chains. She kept me focused, kept me from breaking down. Then something even worse happened. One of my cousins, the only one who ever treated me like a brother, texted me from a burner number. He said Mom was rewriting the family story, telling everyone I stole from the company, that I tried to blackmail her into giving me full control and then ran off when she said no. She was poisoning the well. I was done taking hits. I made a call to a journalist I'd once met through a charity event we helped sponsor. I didn't give my name at first, just said I had documents, financial fraud, shady payroll, tax evasion, and that it tied to a well-known local business. She bit. We arranged to meet in Schenectady. I brought a printed file, left out the stuff with my name, just gave enough to start the story. And that's when I knew it. I wasn't just going to bring her down. I was going to do it where everyone could see. About 2 weeks after I handed off those documents to the journalist, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "We need to talk. Urgently." Or it was Russell, the family lawyer. The same man who sat there quietly during the meeting where I was cut off. I hadn't spoken to him since that day. I ignored it. He texted again 2 days later. "I can't be part of this anymore. Meet me." This time I agreed. We met at a diner in Colony, one of those places where the booths are cracked and the coffee is always burnt. He looked older, tired. He didn't waste time. She's going down, he said. I saw the story. I know it was you. I didn't say a word. He continued. I stayed quiet because I thought I was protecting the family. But I've been doing her taxes for years. I know what's buried. And if I get subpoenaed, I'm not lying. That caught me off guard. Why tell me this? He leaned in. Because she's trying to pin it all on you. He pulled out a folder. Inside were emails. Forged ones. Made to look like I'd set up those fake vendor accounts myself. Dates altered. Signatures copied from old memos. She was building a case that I was the one who skimmed money. That I had been let go quietly to avoid scandal. That I was bitter and dangerous. Russell had been ordered to draft a statement to hand to law enforcement if anything came out. But he hadn't submitted it yet. She's desperate, he said. And she thinks she can still win. That changed everything. I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore. She was preparing to ruin me. The next day, I got a knock at Danielle's door. 2 men in suits. IRS agents. They had a warrant, not for her, but for me. Someone had submitted an anonymous tip that I'd stolen over $60,000 from Delaney Floral Supply in 2021 to 2022. The documents were included. The forged ones Russell showed me. I sat on that couch as they tore through my laptop and phone, asking me where I stashed the funds. I didn't even flinch, because I'd already prepared. The originals, the real files, were already with the journalist, and I'd sent a sealed backup to my old CPA friend. Dates, metadata, server logs, all clean. All showing I had nothing to do with those accounts. In fact, many were created after I'd been locked out of the system. They left without arresting me, but the message was clear. My mother wasn't just trying to erase me anymore. She wanted me destroyed. I went quiet for a few days. Didn't respond to calls. Danielle was scared. I was angry. Not just at her, but at myself. For letting it get this far. For thinking I could walk away clean. Then, the story dropped. Front page of the Sunday Times-Union. Family roots, rotten at the core. Local business faces tax evasion allegations. It was brutal. It had everything. Fake vendors. Payroll manipulation. Anonymous sources close to the company. A breakdown of how profits were funneled through ghost accounts tied to P.O. boxes across 3 counties. And best of all, photos of documents she thought were hidden. Within 48 hours, she was under federal investigation. But the twist wasn't that she was finally caught. It was that she still didn't stop. She went on local radio. Gave an interview, crying on air, saying her estranged son had fabricated everything to destroy her out of jealousy. That I'd been mentally unstable for years. That my father had warned her before he died. She knew exactly what she was doing. Making it emotional, personal. And people started believing her. Old clients dropped the company, sure. But others, the older crowd, loyal to her, posted support online. She was playing victim now. A grieving widow abandoned by her troubled son. That's when I knew. If I wanted to end this, I had to do more than expose her. I had to bury the empire she built. The radio interview was the final straw. I sat in Danielle's living room, listening to my own mother fake cry on air, saying I was mentally unstable. That she'd done everything to help me and loved me despite my demons. She said I'd been violent. That my father had feared me. That's why she had to protect the family legacy. I almost threw the damn radio out the window. She didn't just want to ruin my name. She wanted to rewrite my life. Turn herself into a martyr and make me the villain. That was when I knew exposure wasn't enough. I had to destroy her credibility. Publicly, legally, permanently. So I made 3 moves. First, I went back to Russell. I told him I needed his help. Not to save me, but to save himself. I said, you want to make this right? Swear an affidavit. Sign it. Turn over every document she made you falsify. He didn't argue. He handed me a signed statement, notarized. It detailed everything. The ghost vendors, the forged payrolls, and how she ordered him to create a fake paper trail pointing to me. I sent that straight to the IRS through my CPA. Second, I worked with the journalist who broke the original story. I gave her full access to the new material. Emails, server logs, even voicemail recordings I'd found of her berating employees and threatening whistleblowers. The journalist cross-checked everything, ran a follow-up piece titled, The Matriarch's Mask. New evidence suggests fabricated fraud allegations against son. That headline did what the first story couldn't. It flipped the narrative. Suddenly, I wasn't the bitter son. I was the victim of a cover-up. People online changed their tune. Supporters began backing off. Even her most loyal vendors quietly pulled out. Third, I filed a civil suit. With the help of Danielle's friend, a tenacious young attorney, I filed a lawsuit against my mother for defamation, misappropriation of funds from the drained joint account, and fraudulent removal from company assets. She tried to settle, offered me $25,000 under the table to drop it all. I refused. I wanted the courtroom. I wanted the record. I wanted her lies to be dissected under oath. The trial didn't even last a week. Russell testified. The CPA laid out the financials. The journalist was subpoenaed and brought in the original files. Even my cousin came forward and admitted she'd told them to lie if asked. My mother sat there, stone-faced, like she couldn't believe it was all crumbling. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. She was ordered to pay restitution, court costs, and damages totaling over $200,000. She lost the business within 2 months. The state froze her accounts during the investigation, and without funding or suppliers, Delaney Floral Supply shut down. But the worst part for her? She was blacklisted. No one in the small business community wanted to touch her. She tried to start a consulting firm. It flopped. She tried applying for business loans, denied. Her name was now tied to fraud and lies, not flowers and family. She sold the house in a panic. Quietly moved downstate to stay with a distant cousin who barely spoke to her. We haven't spoken since the trial, but last week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You were right. I underestimated you. No apology. Just that. I framed it. Now, I run a small but thriving design and staging business with Danielle. We have 6 clients, 2 part-time assistants, and enough bookings to keep us steady through the fall. It's not big, but it's ours. I used to wonder if she ever regretted it. Locking me out, cutting me off, trying to destroy me. Now I know she does. Because the one thing she never planned for was this. I didn't want her legacy. I wanted my own. And I took it, piece by piece, until nothing she built could touch me again.